Hello, and welcome to Saving People Queering Things, a supernatural podcast. We were previously known as Driver Picks the Podcast, and the episode you're about to listen to was recorded under that name. Though our name has changed as of season 3, our show hasn't changed that much. Our structure and theme-based discussions are the same, and we're so glad you're here. Now, let's get on the road. Hello, and welcome to Driver Picks the Podcast, the show where we talk about ghosts, road trips, and free will through every episode of the TV series Supernatural. Today, we are exploring Season 2, Episode 12, Nightshifter, through the theme of technology. I am Abigail, your host. My pronouns are they, them, and joining me today is the dream team. We have Jacob and Sam back to bring chaos. Can you both introduce yourself again?
All right, so I'm Sam. I'm really...
The chaos begins. What a great intro. Wow.
Okay, I'm Jacob. That was the bit. I was trying to be... Okay, go.
Oh, sorry. No. Hello, I'm Jacob. My pronouns are he, him.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I am sure. And I'm also excited to see what happens because I have never watched this show. I don't know what's going on.
Abigail, what are you excited about with this episode?
I am excited to get to say Mandroid a bunch of times because I think it's dumb and funny.
Not Mandroid, because that's sexist to just be Mandroid, right?
I'm not sure of the logistics of that actually, so we'll come back to it.
Okay.
So it is now time for our series recap, the road so far. This is what has happened so far in season 2. We are officially halfway through this season, which is exciting. At the beginning of season 1, John Winchester, Sam Dean's father, traded his life for Dean's and died subsequently at the hands of the Yellow-Eyed Demon. We have also met several more special children with strange powers, as well as some hunters that have been trying to kill them all so they don't go quote-unquote dark side. John himself told Dean that he had to save Sam or else kill him. And that brings us to this episode and to our 30-second recap. Who is going first today?
Not I.
You know what? I'm going to go first this time because I can.
Are you making a bit or are you just going for it?
I'm just going to do a normal, regular 30-second recap. Yes.
Ready, set, go.
In this episode, we find out that a shapeshifter has been impersonating normal people and committing robberies and killing the people that he is impersonating. We find this out because Ronald, this nice man, has been tracking and figured out who it is and decides to hold up a bank in order to try and stop the Mandroid, as he calls it. But it's not actually a Mandroid, it's a shapeshifter, and Sam and Dean have to stop it. And then the FBI show up and reveal they have been tracking them for weeks.
Well
okay.
Done. Well done.
Okay, Jacob.
I'm sorry in advance.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not.
Okay, Jacob. 3, 2, 1, go.
On John McClane, mid-30s, good-looking, athletic, and tired from his trip. He sits by the window. He relies on... His relief on landing is subtle, but we notice. Suddenly he hears a salesman's voice. "You don't like flying, do you?" McClane turns and looks at the Babbitt clone next to him. Caught, he tenses, holds his armrest in exaggerated fear. McClane, no, where'd you get that idea? Salesman, smiling. "You want to know the secret to successful air travel? After you get where you're going, take off your shoes and socks. Then you walk around on the rug barefoot and make fists with your toes."
That was a...
It's the script of Die Hard.
Yes, it was the script of Die Hard this episode. But 5 minutes in, you were like, this is very Die Hard.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Is why I chose this episode for you to come on.
Perfect.
Because I thought you would appreciate that.
All right, you ready? All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so there's these robberies and there's this dude who, Ronald, who decides to take matters into his own hands and figure out the mystery. And then Sam and Dean follow him. Nope, he followed Sam and Dean. Anyways, then they just basically run around this bank trying to find the shapeshifter until they find him and kill him. And then the feds arrive and other stuff happens.
That was good. You got the them running around the bank, which is a large part of this episode. It is now time for us to discuss this episode through our chosen theme. And this week, our theme is technology. Let's jump in with any notes on theme and episode.
Well, for reference, Abigail made a wheel with all of the themes on it and spun it a couple times and we picked a couple, and we're like, all right, we'll pick one of these themes depending on what we felt was the best theme for this episode.
Yeah.
And I think it was the like second scene where we were in Ronald's house and his crazy man rant about technology, and we just looked at each other and we're like, technology.
Ronald's whole like interpretation of what's been going on centers around technology because he believes it's aliens.
Robots.
Mandroids.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that he jumps to technology as the like, this is the evil, which is an interesting, like, he makes a reference later on to the Men in Black. Like, it's very much like the magazine he holds up and shows Sam and Dean is talking about like Cybermen, which is like Who reference as well. Like, he's very fixated on clearly like the science fiction of like the robots are here and they're evil and they're trying to take over.
Yeah, than it being a supernatural creature. Yeah.
I mean, like, thinking about it from like a normal world perspective, that's a way more makes sense than it being like a fantasy thing and there's being monsters and stuff around. Yeah.
So what we're saying is that Ronald's reaction is pretty reasonable. That's what I was struck with in this episode. Well, okay, I was struck with a couple things in this episode. Not all of his reactions are reasonable. I think what was striking to me in this episode is that like his interpretation of the situation, he has incorrectly identified the monster, but he has correctly identified pretty much everything else. He's figured out that it's changing into people's forms. He's figured out that it seems to be an exact copy. He's figured out the pattern, that they seem to be like robberies. Like, he figured out where they were going to go next. Yeah, like he figured out he did
all the exposition that Dean and Sam didn't have to do at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, but I also think it's interesting because he's clearly used technology to figure all this out. Like, he's printed off photos. He's done
the VCR player.
He knew how to record. He says he recorded an extra one of the security tapes, so that he could keep one.
Oh yeah, because this guy was the security guard at the jewelry shop, right?
No, the other bank.
The other bank.
Yeah, the other bank.
Right.
The second one that we hear of in the episode.
Right.
And he figures out that you can see the eyes differently on the screen. The laser eyes. Yeah.
The laser eyes.
The laser eyes. Yeah. Yeah. He figures out, like, he pretty much puts all of the pieces together. And like, I think it's Dean that even says that to Sam later on. He says, like, this guy did like all of our work for us. Like, he tracked him, he like led them right to it. And like, they would have gotten there, I think, on their own, but he saves them a lot of time and potentially actually enables them to intervene faster than they would have.
They probably would have missed this. They probably would have missed this bank robbery and then would have to probably track him down for quite a while before they figured out where he's going next.
I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, like, the first thing the shifter does when once they're in the, or like, not the first thing the shifter does. The first thing the police do is they shut down the power so that they can, like, once they realize it's a hostage situation, they shut down the power so that they can, kind of try and isolate and take away some of the abilities of the hostage, of the what they see as a kidnapping.
And then Sam and Dean have to change their plan because their original plan was to be watching the cameras and looking at the eyes of everybody, all the hostages. But then their plan has to change because the cameras are turned off.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that happens a couple of times in this episode too, because their plan originally too is also, let's keep all of the people in one spot so that we know where they are. And then that plan goes to hell. There's also something in this episode I think about, like, technology being really helpful when it works, but also being a bit of a double-edged sword, because technology is what also makes this situation way messier. Like, when we think of technology as not just like electronics, but like the guns that they have are technology. The silver knife that they use is a piece of technology. This situation is made a lot worse by the technology that they have as well.
Yeah, it brought tension. Like, there's the one shot of when Dean came back to all the people in the vault and they saw that he had a gun too. It was like that kind of like shifted their view of Dean from being like, oh, another one of the hostages, to, oh, you're working with this guy, or oh, you're taking over this situation. And like the view of that gun like completely changed the perspective of the situation.
Yeah, It's also interesting, like the whole, like Victor Hendrickson, the FBI agent, has been able to track Sam and Dean using technology. Like he rolls up and goes, I've been tracking these guys for weeks or months.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way he's been able to track them has been he's been putting together these patterns. He's been using the technology. We already know that like the reason that they're on the cops' radar is because of security footage mostly, like, and from St. Louis, from season 1 episode 6 Skin, and also from season 2 episode 7 The Usual Suspects. Both of those are situations where there were camera footage of both Sam and Dean in sticky situations where it was unclear how responsible they were for deaths.
Yes.
And both of those times they managed to like slide out, but this time like they've been technology has like set like their pattern has been noted by Hendrickson.
Mm-hmm. Yes, both of those episodes that I have watched.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob, get with the program.
You know what? There's so many episodes. I just can't get them straight in my mind,
Other thoughts on the episode itself in terms of technology, or just in terms in general. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Jacob, because you haven't seen any of the recent episodes. I gave you a recap before we started watching. This episode's kind of stands on its own, but I'm interested in what you think of this episode just in general as an enclosed story.
Mm-hmm. No, it's very interesting. It was pretty like unique. Well, I mean, they're all kind of unique, like especially the ones that are like not story related. They're just kind of like filler episodes, which the last couple that we watched, besides the season 1 finale, were all pretty like this one, family one, the Benders, and the Scarecrow one.
Oh, Scarecrow, yeah.
We're all kind of like
they're one-offs. They're monster of the week,
and they're like unique in their own way. Like the Scarecrow one was like a horror movie. The Benders one was like a horror movie,
but a different kind of horror
movie. And then this one was like a diehard like cop movie kind of.
Yeah,
almost, like suspense.
That's part of why I chose this episode for you to come on, because I thought you really enjoy the genre. Like it's interesting. Supernatural has like a couple of genres it sticks to, but this is an episode where we are really mixing up the genres, because even though it is a fantasy creature, a supernatural creature of shapeshifters, it is still very much, it feels like a heist movie. It's very Die Hard. I'm surprised we didn't get any distinct Die Hard references, actually, considering.
Yeah, it's not a one for one. Like there's more shows that share this than Die Hard. Die Hard is a very specific type of this kind of thing. They definitely could have added some sort of like Die Hard reference, but I'm also not surprised that they didn't, because I don't feel like the episode needed to.
That's fair.
Because so many cop shows have similar like episode arc. So
one of the notes that I have,
you've notes. It's funny. This is actually one of the few times I actually didn't take any actual physical notes. I took mental notes, but I didn't take any physical notes. There are no notes in the document. I didn't take any, which is
that's not cheating.
Teacher, I said Keener.
Oh, Keener. Yeah. This is because last time
you got high and wrote a bunch of really ineligible notes.
Oh yeah, that's what happened last time.
They were good notes.
Oh, they're phenomenal notes.
This time I actually wrote coherent notes.
That's boring.
Yay, share them, please.
Yeah, one of the notes that I wrote just as like a general about this episode is because I'm always watching Sam. We know this. He's my favorite.
I'm glad we have a Sam girl in our hosting group, because
come on. I stand Sam.
Good. Hey, we got two of you then.
I'm a Sam stan.
Here we go. I have two of you that are.
Yay.
I would like to point out already, Sam's voice did drop
from season 1. You did notice that?
I noticed. Well, no, the only thing, because I remember the one time I watched an episode with friends, I had seen like memes and stuff, and so I kind of had an idea what they sounded like. And then when I watched it, I was like, what is happening to these? Like, what is happening right now? Because I did not expect them to have that deep of voices. Like both of them to have like that, like, I don't know, like belly voices.
Deep, gravelly voices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Jensen Ackles has said in con appearances that like the reason that he has Dean's voice so low, especially in the first season, is actually because he was like, well, Dean like wants to be like his dad. And so he imitates his dad in a lot of ways, including like dropping his voice register so that he'll sound more deep and manly. And then that kind of like goes away a little bit later on, but then his own voice actually does deepen over time. And he kind of just like, it was a persona thing. And it is very funny because it does.
Oh, I hope he keeps that persona for the boys.
I hope so.
Soldier Boy.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because I am so accustomed to the show that I forget that their voices are abnormally low. But anytime I knew, that's like one of the first things a lot of new watchers say.
Like,
It's funny because I was watching this episode with my girlfriend and she hasn't seen the show, but she mentioned how Dean's voice is very intense. She made a comment about Dean's voice, so that's funny.
if I talked like Dean all the time, you would be so shocked whenever you heard me talk. Because this is exactly how he talks all the time.
Then you gotta like have like an intense like shout.
Sam!
That's that's actually pretty good. That's good.
I am a man.
It was good.
I have a deep voice. Or I can.
No.
Thank you. I take pride in that. Having a deep voice, not
Yeah.
being a man.
Congratulations.
In today's world.
Sam, you had a point you were going to make before we got really derailed.
That wasn't really derailed. Come on.
I
We were
mean-
derailed for like minutes. All
Go
right.
for it, Sam. Make your point.
My point was when I was watching Sam and Dean, because usually Sam, generally, not always, but generally, especially in the earlier seasons, Sam is more of the one who like will take on interacting with people and is like better at kind of like being the sensitive one.
Connecting with the victim.
Yeah. And this episode, Dean was the one who really connected with Ronald and understood him and like reassured him. And Sam was the one who was like more annoyed and not as sensitive, which is kind of a switch.
Well, the thing though with Sam is like he even mentioned his reasoning for that was because like he didn't want to get him hurt because he figured it out. And so he was like, no, I don't want this guy to get hurt. So
Yeah, he was trying to protect.
Yeah.
in his own way, he was like trying to be sensitive and protecting him. But then Dean was kind of using him with his knowledge and like wanted to like utilize him
I think
almost.
Yeah, I didn't really fully see it as like him wanting to utilize. I mean, yes, he utilizes his knowledge, but I think one of the interesting things with like their interaction with victims across all of the episodes we've seen so far is that, like you said, Sam tends to connect with the victims on like a really compassionate note a lot of time. And I think he also often connects with like victims who are like very much like overwhelmed by supernatural world existing, who are like, this can't be real, like this, I can't believe that, monsters are real. All I wanted was to be normal, because Sam really like identifies with that as a character. Whereas I think Dean tends to respond really well with victims that are either children or also like figure it out and are like a little bit more gung-ho about like engaging, like Ronald. Like Ronald is a huge nerd. And Dean is also a huge nerd. And so I think Dean has a lot of respect for the fact that Ronald's put this together and also recognizes in Ronald, he's not going to let this go. Like he wants to be involved. Why don't we let him? Ronald has no idea what he's getting himself into. Really, really unfortunately in this episode, like they're not able to save Ronald, and his like his really good-hearted attempt to try and stop the monster like only results in his own death.
Spoiler alert.
Yes, if you didn't watch the episode before listening to this, which would be an odd choice.
You never know.
You never know, yeah.
But I'd like to point, that's why I love Sam, because I relate to him, because he's a soft boy and I'm a soft boy.
Yeah, me too. I'm also a soft boy.
I would argue
Nice.
that Dean is also a soft boy, but for different reasons. So I respect.
Yeah, but Sam is like outwardly soft boy.
Okay, that's fair.
He's
Dean
soft and
Dean
squishy.
is-
Yeah, Sam is very soft and squishy on the outside.
See, that's why I relate to Dean,
Because you're hard and cold on the outside and soft and squishy on the inside.
I
That's what you, that's what you just said.
wasn't going to put it like that, but
Wow.
not cold on the outside. I'm just like
Guarded.
snarky and guarded.
Cold.
Thanks for that, Jacob. Doing tons for my self-esteem over here.
I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate that you made that point though, Sam, because it is an interesting flip for them that we don't see as often, and it does make this episode quite different in terms of like Sam is very much like, we just need to get the job done, we need to like find the shifter, we need to kill the shifter, we need to get out of here. Dean's a lot more like, let me interact with the people and make sure that this like random person doesn't get hurt. And
Yeah, because I wonder if he sees a bit of himself in Ronald.
I think he absolutely sees a lot of himself in Ronald, because I think he experienced as a kid learning about the hunting world and being, he talks in other episodes. He talked in an episode a few episodes ago. He talked about you know, his dad taking him to shoot for the first time when he was like 6 or 7. Like he's grown up around this sort of stuff, and he's kind of morbidly fascinated by, I think, a lot of this supernatural lore stuff. And so he is like, you know, his dad taught him to be like a quote unquote hero, like to be heroic. And so he maybe sees that in Ronald, where he sees Ronald being like, there's a monster, I'm gonna like go get it.
There's that shot when they were leaving the office and like Ronald turns around to close the door and he's smiling, and then he even tells the cops like, I'm not a kidnapper, I'm actually a crime fighter. Like, sure.
He has really bad he makes really bad judgment calls. Like he's not good at
he's not a smart dude.
He's not
I mean, he's a smart dude, but he's not like a socially smart dude.
Yeah, he does not I don't think he grasps the gravity of the situation. Like he's put all the pieces together, but he's not actually equipped to like be hunting the monster. He's very clearly very equipped to do the research, but he has no idea what he's doing, which actually reminds me a little bit of the first episode where they go on a hunt with Joe. Joe is a female hunter that they've met who hasn't been actually on a hunt, but also grew up with hunting parents.
Oh yeah.
And she, in 206, they go on this hunt, and Joe has put this whole hunt together. She's done all the research, but she doesn't have a ton of actual hunting experience. And part of the conversation her and Dean have is like, she calls Dean out because she's like, are you being a misogynist? Like saying, I can't do the job. You think women can't do the job? And he's like, no. He's like, women can do the job. Amateurs can't do the job. Nice. And I see some parallels there with Ronald, except that Joe actually is very capable of doing the job and proves it in that episode, whereas Ronald is actually a civilian. Yeah. Like Joe is not actually a civilian. Ronald is actually a civilian, and he unfortunately wildly unsafe in this episode.
Got shot 2 feet above his patukas.
It's actually really sad.
Yeah, that was a sad moment.
Because Ronald, again, like, you know, as much as his hunting abilities are obviously like non-existent, his heart was really in the right place. Though we will point out, not a great solving problems hostage. Like maybe don't try to solve a problem that you don't have enough information for by taking a machine gun into a bank with a bunch of people. It's a uniquely American solution to a problem.
Yeah, that was something that we mentioned. Was like, it's just like the most American solution to this problem that you could like think of. And I think it was just the ease of having an assault rifle.
Did he already have this technology?
Oh, he probably did.
But like, he does not seem like the kind of dude that would like have had but he also, yes, he was a security guard.
I can absolutely see him with how crazy he was in the first bit and like how preparing himself he was that there's an alien invasion. He probably had a gun at that point.
If he's a little bit of a conspiracy theorist.
But also could have just picked it up on the way there, like as if you were going to pick up a loaf of bread from Walmart.
Yeah, back in 2006.
Yeah. Well, even now you can still buy guns. Like it's true. Like it's nobody's business. But I also think that this is like he's scared, and so even at that point he's scared because he's like, no one believes me, I gotta do something about this. And so like it's just his fear that's like making him make these stupid decisions of like, I just need to do this and do it this way instead of doing it the smart way. And like
it's that whole thing where like fear makes us fear gives us the opportunity sometimes to make really dangerous decisions because we think that something is going to be a solution, even if he's correct. Like he has all this information, like he knows it's a Mandroid or a shapeshifter, he knows all those things, but like he doesn't have any strategy into this. He just goes in being afraid and being like, I have to do this way because nobody else will listen to me. I have gone to the police multiple times and told them what I saw. They didn't believe me. They laughed in my face. They told me I was crazy. They told me I was making things up. My only recourse is to do something drastic. And that's, I mean, speaks to the power of like believing people when they tell us things. I wonder what would have happened if Sam and Dean had actually just sat him down and been like, no, you're right. This is what we think it is. You're right in the sense that like, this is not human and we will let you help us, but like, we're not going to like go in guns blazing. We're not going to put you in harm's way. Like, I wonder if this story could have ended differently for Ronald if someone had taken his fear seriously.
I think it would have been the same, because if they had told him, see, this is how I see it playing out. If they had just straight up told him, it probably would have played out almost exactly the same.
I don't think so.
Well, not exactly the same. His plan would have been slightly different. He would have showed up regardless, I think, because he would have been wanting to help.
Well, but the thing is, I wonder in that scenario if he goes with them. Like, I wonder if he legitimately.
They wouldn't let him go with them.
No, exactly. I think they wouldn't have let him.
But he wouldn't have.
He would have showed up anyways. That's what I'm saying.
He just would have been more informed.
Yeah.
But I wonder if they would also have had, it would have given them more of an opportunity. He would have been less likely to, like, he would have been more likely to show up and listen to them as opposed to like jumping in with a stupid plan, because they would have been able to say, we're pretty sure it's a shapeshifter. This is how you kill it. He's a lot less likely to run in with a machine gun.
Yeah.
His fear is a lot less likely to lead to other people's deaths or his own death.
However, well, yes and no.
Because he might be able to actually be covert, like, because they were going to go in and try and figure out who this was. He might have avoided a hostage situation, which the reason he dies is not actually because of the monster. It's because of the hostage situation. He gets sniped.
Yeah.
And I really want to think about it like a different, like about a different ending. If he, like, I don't want to think that his death was inevitable in this episode.
Here's my thought. I think it would have, I think regardless if Ron was there or not, it would have turned out the same way. Because of what's his face?
Because of Henderson?
Because of Henderson.
Right. So we end up with a hostage situation either way. But maybe Ronald is not involved.
Yes. But if he had shown up then it probably would have been the exact same thing, because when he found out that it was shapeshifters, he still had the gun. He never died because of his fear. He just died because he was stupid and walked into the light and got shot.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Yeah.
It really depends on if he actually would have listened to them or not. My guess, as a writer, he probably would have gone with them anyways, because they needed the conflict of having this guy to try and screw it up. I
think from a story perspective, it's good for them to bring in someone who is almost a hunter, like who's playing at hunting. I think it's a good story thing. It just sucks from a human standpoint. Do you have any other notes, Sam, that you had on your list?
I did have one. I have this note saying how this might be just a little bit more personal for Dean. And the reason was because I was wondering, because before he's been identified by the police. He's wanted by the police because he was caught on film murdering someone. So my question is, that was a shifter situation as well. Was it the shifter that was caught on camera, or was that actually Dean?
It was the shifter. Yeah.
So that's why I made that note of being like, this is also a shifter situation. So this could be more of a personal hunt for Dean because of that, because knowing that he's wanted because of this shifter in the past.
Yeah, I think that's a good note. So that's going to bring us to the end of our theme discussion. And next we're going to move into our Going Meta segment, where we're tracking lore, the Bechdel test, pop culture, all that fun stuff. First off, deaths in this episode. We have Ronald. We have 2 other unnamed victims from the jewelry store and the other bank robbery. Mm-hmm. And then we have, within the episode itself, we have Sherry and
unnamed black guy.
Yeah.
Not Sherry. Sherry didn't die.
Yeah, no, Sherry didn't die. So
it's just unnamed black guy.
So we have 4. We have 4 in this episode. Next, we have the Bechdel test. We're not going to beat this dead horse. It doesn't pass.
Again.
How many episodes so far have passed? Probably count on one hand.
Next, we have our lore check. There's not a lot of lore in this episode. It's our second appearance of shapeshifters, but we don't learn anything new about them that we didn't already know. The only thing is Sam mentions that it's faster at shifting than the one they met in St. Louis.
This is the first time we're meeting what's his face though.
Victor Hendrickson.
Yeah. So he seems to, from what you told me, and it seems like he's going to be a big name character, and so it seems like.
Yeah, he's a pain in the ass.
Plus the whole repeated, kind of getting back into the Dean being dead. Oh, now he's not dead with that. So it's kind of continuing that timeline, that storyline.
Yeah, we've opened that up wide open with the end of this, because this episode it opens up the possibility, even they say it at the end of the episode when they get into the Impala and they're getting away, they're Dean's we are so screwed, and it's very true. They are very screwed.
Even though this was kind of its own episode, it's still main storyline implications.
Yeah. Foreshadowing. In terms of the story, this story is set in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And in terms of filming locations, it is filmed at a Canadian staple, a Royal Bank of Canada in New Westminster.
RBC.
Is it really?
Yeah. Yeah. At least one of the bank scenes is.
I always see those kind of banks in movies where it's just this grand building. And I'm I've never been in a bank that looks like that.
Maybe it's an American thing. Maybe there are more banks like that. And next, pop culture. So There are 4 references.
There
and
was a fucking Die Hard reference, and we both missed it.
We have to amend our earlier statement that there are no Die Hard references.
There's Die Hard reference. Dean calls Sam Agent Johnson, reference one of the FBI agents in Die Hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Which I think is in the conversation when Dean is saying, you know, you make a really good Fed. He's unimpressed that Sam makes such a good FBI agent, which is also hilarious because this is going to be one of the earlier times of many, many times they are going to pretend to be FBI agents. They get very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
At least in terms of a movie situation. They get very good at it, at pretending to be FBI agents. There is also a Terminator reference, a Men in Black reference, and a Doctor Who reference. The Terminator reference is, you know, Dean asking if he means robotic men, like from T2, like he specifically references Terminator. Ronald asks Sam and Dean if they're the Men in Black when he realizes that they're not FBI. And then we talked earlier about the Doctor Who magazine that Ronald has.
About Cybermen.
Yeah, which is very 2006 of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I will say roughly that. Well, you know, Sam and I were watching Doctor Who at around this era, so it's a fun reference. I appreciate.
Yes, I also appreciated it.
And lastly, we have our gaydar, sexuality, and gender connections in this episode. There's not a lot. There is a weird bit of like hero worship sort of
Sherry?
From Sherry, but knowing that that's the shifter.
Was that the shifter at that point?
Unclear
Okay.
At what point. Actually, I don't think that's I think that's actually before.
Because it was the unnamed black guy that was the shifter
right
at that point.
Yeah.
That was weird. Well, it was because like at that point they thought he was a hostage as well and thought he was like trying to be a hero and save them. And then when he shows up,
which is what he's doing actually.
Yeah. And then when he shows up with the gun, she like completely changed her mind and was like, "Oh, you're in with him or whatever." So
yeah, it's just a weird gendered response that feels kind of unrealistic. I don't know what you thought, Sam, about this.
Yeah, it seemed pretty played up.
It doesn't read to me like like that most people in general, regardless of the gender, in a situation as stressful and terrifying as that they're going to be like fawning over this guy that you think is saving you.
Yep.
It's now time for our last segment of the episode, and that is picking a theme song. One thing we've been doing this season is we've been creating a little episode mixtape every week.
Oh my! Do I have to pick a song?
So you can pick a song, anything at all related or unrelated, anything that even makes you think of this episode in any way.
Right.
This episode's fun for this because this episode also has this episode ends with some iconic music that is going to come back. It's the first episode where we get I'm a Wanted Man. We get the last scene is set to some really great music about the fact that they are now like, hey mama, I'm in fear for my life from the long arm of the law. Like that line, that song is going to come back a few times.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time. And so they use music really strongly in this episode. But I want to hear what music you think works for this episode. Go ahead, Sam.
Okay, the first thing that popped into my head without any thought at all, just when you said pick a theme song, was the Pink Panther theme song.
I adore that for so many reasons.
But then upon further thought, I have a better one. Wanted, Dead or Alive.
Which again is also going to be a song that we're going to have connected to the show. So I like it.
CSI Miami theme.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Yep. And the song I'm going to bring is Wanted Man by Johnny Cash.
Nice.
Again, kind of a classic, but going along with the theme of we got the law on our asses.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see more of that soon. That is the end of our show. Thank you both for being here and look forward to having you again.
Yes.
You can subscribe to Driver Picks the Podcast wherever you get your podcasts and come talk to us on Discord or follow us on social media for bonus content and talk to us about the episodes. The link to all of that is in the show notes. Thank you to all of our listeners for coming along for the ride, and we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again. Next week, we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 13, Houses of the Holy, through the theme of mercy. A note to our listeners. This episode was recorded prior to our Season 3 name change, where we went from Driver Picks the Podcast to Saving People, Queering Things. For all of our new social media platforms, visit queeringthingspodcast.com.